Hey, enough of your nonsense.
Yeah, you tell them, Ted. You tell them.
I did. They're shaking.
We are live on Facebook.
Why can't I watch party this? Hey,
You should be able to now. I just set it up live.
enough of your nonsense. Okay, it's not letting me watch party, so what I'm going to do is just share it.
Sounds good.
Oh, start a watch party. No. Okay.
Oh, I got a little echo going.
No, you have an echo going.
No, you have an echo going.
Your mom.
I think I started a watch party of my own and messed it up. All right, how do you end a watch party? There we go. That should be better. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sounds good. And we're live on Facebook. We should be good to go. So yeah, I was going to take the week off because it was the holiday week, and I forgot to tell our marketing people that. So I thought we could just do a quick 30-minute conversation about kind of returning to school and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the world's kind of changed a little bit since we were last in schools.
Yeah.
Lots gone on.
Yeah. Well, not the least of which is kids are now on what would normally be their summer break, but that was preceded by 3.5 more months of sort of summer break, but sort of not. And during that summer break, they couldn't go outside, and they were stuck inside with their siblings and their parents who also couldn't go outside. And when you have that many people who know each other really well in close proximity for that much time, it's not always a happy time.
Like an extended Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah. Or like the ride home from vacation, which is never as happy as the ride there. So, yeah.
So yeah, I thought, we started this week back supporting some teachers and students actually in the classroom for ESY services.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got me thinking about all the things that are going to be new as we kind of go into the school year. Not the least of which is our new logo. Of course, we've got a new logo, which is kind of cool.
That makes a difference for everyone.
It does. It really is a wide-reaching thing. So, it's not only the pandemic stuff. There's been a lot of kind of stuff on the news that, kids are coming back from and experiences kids might have had. So that's got to factor into everything as well.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, because as you know, I always have my own opinions about things. I've heard a lot of concern, people expressing concern about how traumatic the pandemic's been for kids because of their inability to socialize. And while I do understand that, and interaction is wonderful, and kids should be in school, and that's a fantastic thing. I got to thinking about it. For my teenagers, their socialization really didn't change that much because teenagers now socialize so much through social media,
Mm-hmm.
and that really wasn't impacted that much.
Mm-hmm. Well,
if anything.
Other than, I work with a number of kids whose parents limit how much access they have to electronics. Mm-hmm. And some kept that up during this whole time home. And others thought they kept it up, but the kids found 800 different other ways to access electronics. And some just said anything goes, So, for typically developing kids, for a lot of kids with disabilities, they accessed their friends electronically, or they accessed other people electronically. For the kids with more severe or profound disabilities, I don't know that they've been accessing their friends electronically. First, I don't know how many friends they have, because the fact is, if you're with someone because they're paid to be with you, or if you're with someone because someone else puts them in the same place as you, and it's not a mutual thing where you want to be with that person, that person wants to be with you. I don't know that you call that friends, but we have kids who haven't been around other kids for a long time. We have kids who've interacted only electronically with other kids for a long time. And I don't know if you know this, but sometimes when people are interacting this way, but they can't see each other, but it's typing stuff, people tend to say things that they wouldn't normally say. So I have a lot of
That's
kids
true.
who've lost friends, a lot of kids who've been bullied, who have bullied. And then we have a lot of kids who got in trouble for interacting with their friends online because they were online when they shouldn't have been. And then we have a lot of kids who just spent all day, every day goofing around online because they were able to. So yeah, it's going to be different because they're going
It's going to be a mixed bag. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even just kind of that first day of ESY support and looking ahead and having conversations throughout the state with various divisions, there is no question that education is going to have a more virtual, electronic, online reality to it moving forward. And maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I think when you look at higher education, like the college systems, a lot of them have moved to that online modality. So getting some experience with that is great. I think my advice, kind of what I saw just going into the classroom yesterday to teachers, is think about how you can maximize the time that they're actually physically in the classroom, because I do think that's going to be limited no matter what your school division is doing. It's not going to be kids back to school 5 days a week. How can you truly maximize that time? Don't just have the kids sitting. Especially if you're working in kind of that self-contained class, how can you create social interactions and opportunities to get as much of a chance for kids to interact with each other personally? But I think also something that needs to be remembered is not every kid knows how to learn online. And when they're in the classroom, I think that is a good time to teach, with the support of the teacher, how to learn online, and then gradually kind of fade yourself out, almost like shaping it a little bit. So
Yeah, no, you're right. A couple things about that. When Jim Todd was with us last week or the week before, one of the things he mentioned was that the dirty little secret that we professors don't tell people is when we're selecting students, when we're doing the admissions thing, we usually pick people who are really good at learning on their own. Okay, so there's some bias there. Teachers in elementary ed, middle school, high school, they don't have that luxury. They're teaching whoever they're given, right? But as far as teaching kids how to learn online when you're in the classroom, great for lots and lots and lots of kids. And a lot of kids are not having a problem with this, except they have to wake up on time, or they have to, quit doing World of Warcraft and
right.
get online. But for a lot of other kids, up until recently, their computer use or their iPad use has been largely limited to gaming. And now suddenly the fun machine has become the work machine. So some parents are fighting that battle. And some teachers will have that difficulty as well.
Let me ask you a quick question about that, because I think it brings up an interesting question. Do you recommend to teachers that they kind of embrace the fun and like incorporate that into the electronic learning? I mean, because a lot of teachers are going to be scrambling, trying to figure out how to make this work.
Well, and about the electronic learning, I've been doing it now for 8 years. So I designed my first online course in 2012, spring of 2012, to go live summer. And I've designed a lot of online courses since then, and I get really good reviews for them. But I have this crazy old doctoral degree in instructional design. So that sort of helps me, right? There's a difference between being a teacher and having lots and lots of training in instructional design. Teachers are good at instructional design. It's what they do for a living, but they do a lot of other things for a living. And when you've been doing it live for a long time, and suddenly you have to move it to virtual, when you haven't had the luxury of being able to plan for that, and you haven't had the luxury of, before you're planning for that, learning everything you need to know about how to use the tools available to you virtually, it's a lot of stuff kind of snowballing right there.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest for teachers in terms of incorporating fun and making it sort of a game is, yeah, absolutely. We want to pair the experience with reinforcement, right? We want it to be fun. We want it to be something that kids want to do rather than have to do. And do that within the confines of what you know how to do, and what you know how to do virtually. And when you're trying new stuff virtually, get advice from someone who really knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And don't go for all of it at once. Go for one more thing this week than you did last week at a time.
Yeah.
Because you want it all to work well. There kind of aren't any do-overs.
No, and we at EBCS we've been actually providing some special education services, instructional services for some of the divisions we support online for learners that are in that adaptive functional type of classroom. And what we found, we've played with certain methodologies and ways to reinforce, because reinforcing is really the hardest part over the internet, over this Zoom kind of thing, because you're not there to deliver a tangible reinforcer or even kind of physical attention that you might normally deliver in person.
Mm-hmm.
So you really got to plan out the reinforcement. But I think my advice and what we've learned at doing that over the past couple months is you've got to allow for one of the sessions to just be a bad session. And if it's bad that day, just move on to the next one. Don't anticipate that's going to be the way it's going to be every single time, because it is one of the things that's very true in the instructional environment for kind of our self-contained special education world is that we have a lot of control over the environment when the learner comes to the table, right? We can control what's motivating, what's not. But when we're looking at like grabbing a 30-minute period of that learner's day online, we don't have a lot of control what happened going to the computer, or even what they had for breakfast that morning. It's like
or even what's going on behind them or elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think everybody needs to keep a pretty good sense of humor about what they're doing, and be fluid and flexible. That's been kind of one of our mindsets is, if something doesn't work, we try another way to do it. We've had to really reach for kind of alternative thinking and ways to deliver reinforcement. And we've figured it out pretty well. And we hope that your school divisions reach out to us, because we would like to support you guys in providing these services. But one of the things that struck me yesterday, Ted, whenever we were in an ESY mode, and for those who don't know, ESY is extended school year for special education.
Which it used to be summer school, but you can't call it summer school because that implies summer. ESY is about 4 weeks.
Yeah. So, we've been supporting this school division for a while now, and the teacher came up to us and was like, I've got these 2 students that, because of health conditions of their caregivers, they can't come into ESY, so we're trying to do online services, but I can't figure out how to reinforce them. And I think one of the things that I love, because one of the things that I preach when I go into classrooms so much, and I know you do as well, is that power of reinforcement and how important the schedule of reinforcement is. I think teachers are becoming a little bit more aware of just how important that is, and how beneficial having access to immediate reinforcement is when they try to do online instruction. So there may be some silver linings to all this, some takeaways that would be good.
I'm helping a person I work with through this way sometimes when my car's not in the shop, when I'm able to get there. And what I do, he has 2 half-hour sessions a day. One is with the whole class, and it's a small class. It's maybe 8 students, half-hour long. The other one is a small group. It's the teacher and him and another student. And with this one, what I'm doing, because I started doing this in other work with him to kind of help him learn how to pay attention is I do 5-minute interval sampling. I do inter-observer agreement, which not everyone knows what that is, but for us sciencey behavior analysts, that's how we figure out how believable our data are, right? That's like the extent to which two people watching will report the same thing. Well, I'm not doing that with him for that reason. What I do, and we started months ago doing 2 minutes at a time, then 3 minutes, now we're doing 5 minutes. I set my timer on my phone to go off every 5 minutes. At the end, and quietly, at the end of 5 minutes, I look at him, he looks at me, and he tells me 0, 1, or 2. 2 is 2, I can count. 2 is he did a really great job paying attention for that 5 minutes. 1 is he did an in-between job. 0 is he didn't really pay attention. I do the same thing. What I do is every 5-minute interval, I record his score, I record my score, I show him. Now for this guy, for most people, being right is a huge reinforcer, right? And for this guy, he loves it when he gets a 2, when he gives himself a 2, and I gave him a 2. Because not only did he get it right by paying attention, or so he thinks, but he really got it right because I also gave him a 2. Sometimes he gives himself a 2 and I say, and I give him a 1, which kind of tells him, you know, step it up for this next one. He's really honest with his zeros. We very, very, very rarely anymore get a 0. Occasionally there's a 1, it's almost always 2. So this kid, through this little thing that I'm doing with him, and I think his parent takes over when I'm not there. This is helping him. First off, it's a midway point to teaching him that self-management. He's monitoring his own behavior, and he's paying attention, and he's rating how well he's paying attention. That's a good start. But second, it's an easy thing to do. And for this kid, that's all the support he needs to benefit from the virtual instruction. Other kids are going to need more help, though, you know?
Yeah. So again, kind of throwing it back to like the new experience of the new normal back in the classroom yesterday, we were in gloves, we were in face masks, you know, hand sanitizer every chance we get it. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised at how little that affected the interaction between us and the students. I thought the face coverings would be a huge thing, but you know, just a little bit more energetic tone of voice and just more facial expression. Yeah, just kind of like supplement it. But what do you have any advice for like the teachers? I mean, there is certainly, if you watch kind of comments that cycle around Facebook, I mean, teachers are stressed about going back to work, you know, and
They are.
what are you have any advice for those teachers going back?
Okay, yeah, the job hasn't changed. It's still teaching, right? It's still preparing lesson plans. It's still a lot of differentiating instruction. It's still teaching. And teachers have had to deal with stuff before. Never a worldwide thing like a pandemic, but they've had to deal with stuff before. And they've done very well dealing with stuff before. And they're going to do well dealing with this stuff before. I would say if they have opportunity to do anything like, and this is going to sound like out there, like crazy psychology stuff, but anything mindfulness based, anything to help them get better at paying attention to what's going on right now, to keep their head in the game, keep focused on the work. That's going to be tremendously helpful. They're setting the tone for the classroom. If they're wigged out, the students are going to be wigged out. Not all of them, but a good number of them. If they're stressed, the students are going to be stressed. If they're relaxed and optimistic and cheerful, they're going to bring about some of that in their students too. So what I would suggest is keep that number one objective, what it's always been. Number two, know what the modifications are that you have to make. And teachers, special ed teachers in particular, are already really good at that because they have to do modifications all the time. These are more modifications. But number three, when you have kids coming back to school who haven't been in school for a long time, some of whom haven't left the house. I work with someone who hasn't left the house since March 16th, except to walk the dog. Someone who hasn't left the house. We got to do a lot of pairing ourselves in the situation with reinforcement. You have to do that at the beginning of every school year anyway, though, right? And so, I think it's a matter of pulling out the same routines we had before, but just doing them with the new COVID modifications we have to have, with the masks and the hand sanitizer and everything else. I think our kids are going to get really good at reading facial expressions based on what they can see, based on what's up here. They're going to get really good at attending to tones of voice, and they're going to get good at attending to the eyes.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. I had my oldest son, Steven, he's getting ready to start college as a special education program, and he's also doing his RBT coursework. And I had him produce basically a Google slide of a bunch of different kind of facial expressions, and he came back to me and I looked at him, and there was probably 50% of them didn't have mouths. And I said, Steven,
Yeah.
what good is this? And he said, Dad, everybody's gonna be wearing masks.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about it, but it's a great thing. And when I was interacting with kids yesterday, I was really mindful of really kind of like making my face very, expression, full of expression when I was interacting with the kids. So I think that was cool.
Yeah, about facial expressions. If you Google Ekman and Friesen, ECKMAN and Friesen, FRIESAN, or maybe SEN, facial expressions. Go to Google Images. They're the guys who did the research a long, long time ago, like 60s or 70s, that identified the 7 basic emotions: happy, sad, angry, afraid, disgust, contempt, and neutral. And there are very standardized facial expressions that are kind of like the archetypes for these. And if you Google those and look at them, and they've been updated to like be in color and have people of color, because it was 60s, a different time. But the facial expressions are universal all over the world.
Right.
They're all the same. And if you look at that, it's a great teaching tool for teaching facial emotion recognition, but it's also something great that you can practice with your mask on, so that your happy looks happy. You know when someone's faking happy when the smile is down here, but the smile's not up here.
Right. That's a great point. And it's just, things are going to look a little different, and we got to kind of strive. This is going to be a short one. We're only going to do 30 minutes because I managed to like triple book myself this morning, which I know you've done yourself sometimes. But I do want to just touch really quickly on, there's been so much on the news, and, we keep our focus kind of on the individual. The one thing I just wanted to express about everything kind of going on in the world, and as it relates to education and how we go into the classrooms and what role ABA takes, is the one thing that I know for certain when I look at behavioral situations in schools is that usually something very small turns into something very big because of the initial way we approach it as adults.
Yeah.
And with everything going on in the world, I think the one thing I just wanted to communicate was, if you take nothing else away, that be very mindful of how we can keep something that really is kind of small from turning into very big, just by being mindful of how we approach the situation, how we approach the individual, our posture, our facial expressions. I mean, a lot, going back to this mask thing, a lot of initial kind of disciplinary interactions right now are going to be an adult standing over a child with a face covering, and that's a pretty intimidating kind of view. And I think that if I could give any input to all the teachers out there, all the administrators out there, it's to be very conscious of how you initially interact with something, because that can really set the tone for whether it's going to be a learning experience or whether it's going to turn into something that is not a learning experience and becomes kind of something else. And we see that a lot in education, not to pick on the principals but I've seen principals kind of just roll into a classroom, just really fast and really quick and with really stern voice. And that sets the tone. That creates the possibility for something to turn into something more than what it was.
Yeah. Oh, Maria and I saw one like that in March, just before all of this started.
Yeah.
Substitute principal misinterpreting one thing, disciplining a kid who wasn't even involved, which snowballed, and there goes the whole rest of the day. Another thing, though, it's going to be, since the kids can, think about what people are going to be dealing with. It's the usual stuff, right? It's the usual stuff, except instead of kids coming back after 3 months, they're coming back after sort of 6, but not really, but sort of. But it's going to be kids with masks, kids, doing all sorts of things that kids will do. It's going to be really important to continue to attend to what's going right.
Right.
And mentioning that a lot. Catching kids doing the right thing and catching kids being good a lot. And that goes with pairing yourself and the environment with a lot of reinforcement. People like to be right. Catch the kids being right and let them know. Often. It's free, it's cheap, it's easy. You just notice it. If you see something, say something, but this is in a good way.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to where we started, that there is going to be a limited opportunity for teachers to interact face-to-face, one-to-one, or at least with their class in person. Don't waste that time. Maximize it. Like Ted said, look for the things that are going right and not the things that are going wrong. If you're hyper-focusing on the things that are going wrong in the situation, you're wasting that precious time that you have with those students in your classroom.
Yeah, and a few seconds here and there throughout the day. And I mean a lot of here and there, but it's still a few seconds accumulated. Maybe it'll add up to all of like 5 or 6 minutes in the day. Spent noticing people doing stuff right is going to prevent a lot of half an hour and an hour and 2 hours dealing with stuff that could have been avoided if the kids were keeping their heads in the game because you were noticing them doing stuff right.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of the new. I mean, I do think that education was due for a little shakeup. I mean, we've been kind of in the same educational model since everybody was, probably the early 1900s, really. I mean, it really hasn't shifted that much in how we do school. I mean, technology's come in, but
the jungle gym's gone.
It's still the teacher standing in front of the class. And don't be afraid of the new. Let this be an opportunity to kind of try new things out, shake it up, and empower your students. I mean, I think this is a great time to get them involved with their own classroom management. Ted was given a really good example of kind of self-monitoring earlier. Everybody's coming into this new reality of what school is going to look like. And it's going to be different across all ages and school divisions, but it's going to be a ride for sure. Walking in, getting your temperature taken every morning. And I mean, even that, I think we have to allow that can be an aversive to some kids, having to stand there and have.
That happens when they have an ear infection. That happens when they have other things. So,
right.
If parents have thermometers now, the digital kind they just put in front of the forehead, can start practicing that now at home. Temperature check, treat, temperature check, television, temperature check, whatever. Not to see if the kid's sick, just to teach them, actually good things can happen when you do this.
Yeah. And I think for the parents out there, that's a great point about the parents practicing. I think one thing I hope comes out of this whole thing is that parents now are going to have to be partners with the schools. I mean, because they are now part of the educational system in the new world where kids are going to school 2 days a week and at home 3 days a week, for better or for worse. I think that is a better part of this. Be a partner with the school system.
Well, yeah, and parents really, really need to, because what's been made painfully clear for so many families is that school is their childcare. School is their free daycare. and the parent can't go back to work or can't get the work done at home without having to attend to 800 other things unless the kid's in school. So
Yep.
partner with the school, keep the kids in school.
All right, Ted, I hate to cut this short. This is actually, we ought to come cycle back around to this next week maybe, but it's good to see everybody. I hope you had a happy, safe 4th of July. I hope everybody's staying healthy and your families. And as we start coming back to school, let's just see what happens.
All right. See you later.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.